Good afternoon. My name is Saxon Nelson. I'm the Director of Community Engagement here at Research for Action. And Research for Action recognizes research as a powerful mechanism for advancing education systems change. We partner with education change agents to design and implement actionable research and evaluation projects and disseminate empirical evidence to catalyze the development and scale of equitable and just education programs, policies, and systems. From statewide evaluations and program design to policy analysis and technical assistance, RFA now brings its innovative, community engaged approach and commitment to equity to educational systems and community members throughout the United States. Welcome, welcome to Roots and Resistance, a Black Educator Audio Experience. We believe that this will be a powerful and immersive virtual listening party and community conversation centered on the lived experiences of Black educators in Allegheny County and beyond. We are here to unveil an audio documentary that brings to life the themes of the Small But Mighty Report, Research for Action's 2023 study, highlighting the systemic challenges and powerful contributions of Black teachers across the region. Now, before we begin, we would be remiss not to discuss the historical and current context when it comes to the dearth of Black teachers in Allegheny County and nationwide. An unfortunate side effect of school integration in the wake of Brown versus Board was the loss of many Black teachers and principals as segregated schools closed. Now, research on recent school closures, including a brief RFA published just last June, has shown that districts are more likely to close schools that enroll more Black students. Again, just last June, we've been able to show that districts are more likely to close schools that enroll more Black students. As many of you know, Pittsburgh Public Schools, where many of Allegheny County's Black teachers are employed, is in the midst of a school closure process. It remains to be seen what impact this will have on Black students and teachers. And with that said, I would like to highlight our agenda for the day. So myself and Dr. Parks will welcome you to the event today. Then we will transition into sharing the audio documentary. We'll then share with everyone the debut of our microsite. We will get into our community conversation and then transition into our closing. So before we start to move forward, let's do a quick just hello from the other RFA staff that you'll be hearing from today. You heard from myself, and now I'll ask Dr. Parks to introduce herself.
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Saida Parks, and I'm the Associate Research Director at RFA.
Hi, everyone. I'm Mary Eddins. I'm a research associate also at RFA.
Hi, everyone. My name is Kevin Burgess. I'm a senior research analyst at RFA and co-host of the audio doc.
Hello, I'm Alita Robinson, and I'm also a senior analyst at Research for Action.
Dr. Cabral, please close us out.
Hello, my name is Liana Cabral, and I'm a senior research associate.
So and thank you, my folks. So before I transition the facilitation over to Dr. Parks, I have a few micro asks of all of you to help support your experience this afternoon. Please first take care of yourself. Take a few minutes to make sure you have water, make sure you're comfortable. It's a little chilly outside, so if you need a blanket or anything, please get comfortable as you'll be taking a moment to really immerse yourself and be present as possible with this listening audio experience. Please use the chat again to introduce yourself, name, org, and location. And as thoughts and questions come up, please put them in the chat as we'll have folks monitoring chat activity. And thank yourself for showing up at end of the 4 o'clock p.m., 5 o'clock right there session. Please thank yourself. And let's all take a collective deep breath as we kind of ground ourselves to begin. So for all those that would like to join me in that, I will lead us in our collective deep breath, and then Dr. Parks, feel free to take over. So let's go in and out. I thank you, Dr. Parks.
Thank you, Saxon. I think I definitely needed that. I imagine other people needed it too, so that was helpful. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about why an audio documentary and kind of how it came to be. Um, so the idea for this audio doc really came from our desire to create non-traditional products that would share our research findings in an accessible manner that's engaging for multiple different audiences. So because at RFA we conduct applied research that's intended to inform action and change, we want to make sure that it's really reaching multiple stakeholder groups. So Kevin and Mary are going to talk more about the research study itself, but the important things to know in order to understand how we got to an audio doc are that one, data shows that the districts in Allegheny County and also several districts across the country are experiencing a lack of Black teachers. And two, we believe that Black teachers' voices, perspectives, and experiences are central to understanding that shortage. So an audio documentary allows us to share Black teachers' words verbatim in their own voices so that audiences can fully understand and value the message that Black teachers would like to get across. I'd like to now introduce Quinn Van, who's a co-host of the Diseducation podcast. So Quinn and her co-host Mignon, who unfortunately could not be with us today, they partnered with us to create this audio documentary. Our team at RFA knew very little about podcasting, didn't even know where to start. And so Quinn and Mignon really guided us through the entire process, kind of introduced us to this world of podcasting, and they were with us from start to finish. So I think it'd be really interesting for us to hear a little bit from Quinn about her perspective on the process and kind of what it was like to work with researchers on creating an audio documentary. So welcome, Quinn.
Sure thing. Hello. Hi, everybody. My name is Quinn. Currently, actually, I moved a couple months ago over to Vienna, Austria. So it's like 10 p.m. here, but we're alive, we're kicking it. Just wanted to say it's been such a pleasure working with RFA on this. We worked on it primarily 2024 last year for like a bulk of the year. And so it's really exciting since a lot of things wrapped up around fall, winter, and it's been a couple months. It's really exciting to be here seeing the release and the full publication of what we worked so hard on for almost a year. I can say that, we worked in, Mignon and I, we have our own podcast that I think is really deeply aligned with RFA, looking at liberation, looking at, teachers of color, Black teachers, and this kind of pipeline that is really chewing out and spitting a lot of teachers of color and Black teachers out of the education system. And seeing that alignment, we opted to work together. I think one of the things that's been interesting working from a podcasting perspective with researchers has been like, finding that balance between being comprehensive and being thorough with how do we create a narrative that's interesting for people and that is, going to hook people's interests. One of the things we opted for was actually, instead of floating a bunch of different quotes from different folks, re-interviewing 3 people in order to get 3 Black teachers, in order to get, more details on their stories, and really highlighting only a couple of teachers in the podcast itself in order to make it sound more humane. It also made, like, on the editing side, really interesting. We opted to basically edit down their entire interviews so that they all kind of have their own feature. And their chronological story is like, its own thing within the audio documentary itself. So those were some interesting choices the team and us made. But yeah, we're excited to, I'm excited to represent and be here and to see how today's release and publication goes. Back to you, Saida.
Yeah, thank you. And please definitely check out the Diseducation podcast if you're not familiar with it already. Hearing from Quinn and Mignon about their experiences and their perspectives, and just like seeing how, like she said, there's alignment between their work and ours was really affirming. So it's almost time to actually hear some clips from the audio doc. But first, our team wants to tell you a little bit about the research that led to the audio documentary. So to get us started with that, I'll pass it to Mary Edens, who was co-director for this project. And they'll name this, but when you have time, please also check out the full Small But Mighty report if you're not familiar with that already. Thanks.
Thank you, Saida. And Alita, thank you for sharing screen again. You can go to the next slide. This one's perfect. Thank you. All right, so as many of you already know, research conducted across the US and by various institutions has widely shown that teachers of color matter and can improve school experiences for all students. Now at RFA, our early research on teacher race and ethnicity in the state of Pennsylvania started with analyzing quantitative data from our State Department of Education. So we started by looking at the numbers to understand the landscape of teacher and student diversity across lines of race and ethnicity for the years that the data is available. And what we have found over the past 11 years is a large and growing disparity between teacher and student racial demographics within the county. So this finding supports a very clear call to action for our region that we need more teachers of color, a call to action that many leaders, districts, schools are intentionally responding to, and many of which are on this call today. Alita, you can go to the next slide for me. Thank you. So this second graph looks more closely at student and teacher race and ethnicity in Allegheny County. And what you find when you look more closely is that white students in Allegheny County have more access to teachers who look like them, so think mirrors, than teachers who have different racial backgrounds, right? Think windows, windows to different cultures, perspectives, et cetera. While our students who identify as Black, Hispanic, Asian, or other have very little access to teachers who share similar racial backgrounds, a clear inequity for our county. It's important to note that while 5% of all teachers in the county are teachers of color, those teachers are not evenly distributed across or employed by all of our county's schools and districts. So there are many schools and even entire districts in our county with 0 or only 1 teacher of color. These numbers have improved in recent years, but our region still has quite a lot of work to do to continue to move the needle on increasing teacher diversity for our students. Annalisa, you can go to the next slide, my last slide. Thank you. This last slide or this graph shows that while the share of teachers of color has increased slightly over time, right, from around 4.5% to 5% for our county, our region has experienced a decline in the number and the share of Black teachers specifically, while teachers from other race and ethnicities like Hispanic and Asian have actually increased. So the increase in teachers from other races and ethnicities should most certainly be celebrated. But the decline in Black teachers in particular is concerning, and this discovery served as a catalyst for RFA's continued qualitative research in this area. So with that, I will pass it to my colleague, Kevin, who will share more about the Small But Mighty study and audio documentary.
Thank you, Mary. So RFA, as Mary mentioned, wanted to learn more about why Black teachers are leaving Allegheny County classrooms and identify any barriers to their recruitment and retention. So we conducted a community-informed study called Small But Mighty, and that's centered on the experiences and perspectives of Black educators and those leading teacher diversity initiatives in the region. So the data we collected was very rich. And so that prompted us to make a decision to explore the themes from that study further, and also trying to reach a wider audience that doesn't typically consume research products. So that is why we made the decision to kind of pursue an audio documentary format to further explore the themes of the Small But Mighty study. And we can go to the next slide. So the audio documentary is also named Small But Mighty, and it features the stories, as Quinn sort of mentioned, that of 3 Black educators from Allegheny County who are recounting in their own words the strengths they bring to the classroom and the structural and personal challenges they've navigated. It also features anecdotes from 3 Black Allegheny County students who share how meaningful their Black educators are to them in a region where there are so few. So hosted by my colleague, Sam Reed, a teacher with over 20 years of classroom experience who has been actively involved with teacher diversity efforts, and yours truly, the audio documentary flows from the broader research study. The Black teachers we interviewed for the audio doc reflected on 3 key takeaways, which were the main takeaways from the study and how they have manifested in their teaching careers. So the takeaways are, number 1, Black teachers make unique, irreplaceable contributions. Number 2, Black teachers confront unique challenges. And number 3, specific conditions serve to keep Black teachers in the classroom. So in a moment, we're going to be listening to, and you can move to that, yeah. In a moment, we'll be listening to 3 clips from the audio documentary. These are just, snippets. They are highlighting prominent themes from our research, but we do encourage you to engage with the entirety of the Small But Mighty audio documentary and report, which will provide a fuller picture of what we found. At the end of our program, there'll be QR codes for you to scan so you can access both the audio doc and the report. Next slide, please. And we also wanted to provide kind of an engagement opportunity for y'all. Some of the clips will be rather long, but we really wanted to center Black teachers and their stories. As Quinn mentioned at the outset, that was one of our big thoughts and one of our central kind of philosophical points with the audio doc, is just making sure that they were centered, and we wanted to do that with this listening experience today. So, and we also wanted y'all to think about how the stories that of both triumph and great contributions, and also the challenges that Black teachers are facing, how we can lift those up and how that can help us inform future actions that we collectively would take to support these teachers who are doing great work. Unfortunately, we're not going to have a lot of time in this discussion or in this audio experience to have audience discussion, but we do have a digital forum for you to record your thoughts while listening. So we're going to drop a link to the forum in the chat. So please click on the link to access that site, and you can record your thoughts there, and we'll voice some of those over as we transition from clip to clip. So we're asking you to consider 2 questions. First, what stood out to you from the findings? And second, how do you think we can best address and or lift that up collectively? Next slide, please. And so, as I mentioned before, the Small But Mighty audio doc and report center on 3 key takeaways. So takeaway number 1 is that Black teachers make unique contributions in their classroom every day. They're building special connections with their Black students, and they're exhibiting culturally relevant pedagogies and practices. So the first clip that we're going to hear from one of the teachers in our audio documentary focuses on how she creates a culture of care for her Black students and families. So next slide, and then we'll share the clip now.
Let's hear from another Black teacher from Allegheny County, Lisa.
My name is Lisa. I am currently a 2nd grade teacher in a urban public school district. I've been teaching 2nd grade math for about 10 years now, but I was a preschool teacher previously for 11 years. So I have a total of about 21 years in this district, but I also have some experience working in like some juvenile detention centers and those kind of things. But primarily, I've been teaching for this district for about 21 years. The community is low income, primarily African American students. We are primarily teaching African American students. As a Black teacher in an urban school with mostly Black students, respect is a big thing. Respect and empathy, I think, is huge. I'm big on respecting students as humans. I'm big on respecting families, their situations. I'm big on them respecting me as well. I think that you have to build that trust, that respect from day one. I think as a Black teacher, we tend to look at students differently than the white teachers. There's a huge difference because they know that I'm not their mom. I don't try to be their mom. I'm not their auntie, but I look like them and I treat them different and I treat them with respect. And I want to know how they are. I make sure that I speak to everyone. I'm looking at them, looking them in their eyes when they come in. If they're absent, I'm like, hey, where were you yesterday? Not like, where were you yesterday, but where were you? Like, I missed you. Are you okay? Is everything? Just those type of things. Hey, hey, I see you got new shoes on, or how's your mom? I haven't talked to mom. Is mommy okay? How's dad? even like siblings of students, like, hey, I had your older brother. The way you treat somebody makes a huge difference. The way you make them feel. I care about my students, and I want them to know, to feel, not to just say it, but them to feel that I care about them. I care about the whole person, not just if they're able to pass a test. And I think that's the biggest thing, is making students and parents feel like you have their child's best interest at hand. So my job it's a job, yes, but it's my lifestyle. It's kind of like that's what I do. That's my life. This is I feel like it's a calling. My room is a whole vibe. It is from day one. Like, they come in, the lights are usually down low. I usually have some kind of music. Heart and Soul is always playing in my room. We sit in clusters, so they're not by themselves. I don't have assigned seats in my classroom. I tell them that as long as you can sit in that space and you're able to work next to that person, then that's fine. Like, it's a different feel in here. Sometimes I have to move. And it's okay for them to move. Well, who wants to sit in one seat for 90 minutes? And no, if you need to stand up in the back of the room. As long as you're doing your work, it doesn't bother me. You can't have them all sitting in their seats nice and quiet and copying. No, they have to figure stuff out. Give them some cubes and say, okay, let me see how you can make 15 with different colors. Then things like that, that's where the behavior problems come from, when you expect them just to sit there in a seat all day, being quiet, and you talking at them. No one wants to do that all day. Adults don't want to do that all day. So why would someone 6 or 7 years old want to sit in their seat and not be able to move or say anything? And no, that's not how students learn.
So something that stood out to me when listening to Lisa is the way Lisa builds relationships with students. She takes a humanizing approach. She doesn't see herself as their family just because of their shared backgrounds. She names care for Black students and their families as part of how she demonstrates respect and builds connection. Mm-hmm. Lisa also reflects on the difference in her approach as a Black teacher, especially when it comes to seeing and supporting Black students.
Camille talked about this too, and Lisa describes a liberatory approach to classroom management. Black children deserve freedom, and Black teachers provide that space and safety for that to happen. In RFA's research, these kinds of culturally relevant practices from Black teachers show up over and over, especially in the unique ways that Black teachers approach discipline and behavior management.
Absolutely. And I think it's important to highlight that Lisa's making choices, from the learning activities to seating and freedom of movement to intentionally playing music that is culturally relevant. But it's bigger than music. Lisa is affirming that Black culture is important, and there's a moment when Black students can feel centered instead of always being at the margins.
For sure. In our research, Black teachers and students talk about how culturally relevant pedagogy creates a sense of freedom and safety they don't always receive in other classrooms. That's the power of having Black teachers.
Okay, so thank you for your attention during the clip. We just wanted to pull up the Slido and give voice to some of the things that y'all were thinking about as you listen to the clips. And so I'm seeing at the top, one of the things that resonates with me is respect. When I was a teacher, my classroom was built on mutual respect. So thank you so much for that comment. I'm glad we have a lot of teachers in the audience as well. So thank you for sharing that. What else stood out to people? It looks like the trust and support Lisa shows by allowing students to move around the classroom as they want and need. Yeah, I thought that was a really powerful thing as well, right? It's a theme that's really kind of emphasized during the audio documentary, and in a lot of the things that we saw through the research is just that Black teachers allow, there's just not this aspect of policing, right? There's this freedom. Yes, they'll be able to check students when they need that. They'll be lovingly demanding, but there's not this assumption of guilt that a lot of Black students feel. And I think that's actually a good segue, because I want to kick it to my colleague Alita, who will explain a little bit about student voice in the audio documentary.
Thank you, Kevin. So as you just heard, Black teachers make a special impact on their Black students and families. And I'm just going to repeat that. Black teachers make a special impact. And that's something that some of these audio clips are definitely lifting up. They see and center them in ways that honor their talents while lovingly demanding of them, of being lovely and demanding of them. This is a part of their mission and a reason for being in the classroom. But we also wanted to hear from students themselves, an uplifting student voice. The original Small But Mighty study did not include their voices, but in this clip that you're about to listen to, we will hear from an Allegheny County Black student who shares how his Black teachers intentionally relationship building has affected him.
You just heard how Black teachers stay because they love their kids. Now, hear from 3 Black students who talk about how important these relationships with Black teachers are to them.
In the Black teacher class, I feel more respected. It's a safe environment for me. Like when I walk in, I automatically feel safe. I feel like, oh, I'm about to sit down and do my work. I'm gonna worry about nobody getting mad at me or me messing up. I don't really gotta worry about nothing. I just gotta worry about respecting my teacher and getting my work done for real. In a Black teacher class, I could do more stuff, and I don't get in trouble for. I get in trouble for like stuff that I do that I know I'm wrong, but like they don't just go straight to, oh, you got detention. They try to pick me up and tell me like, don't do that. Think about what you're doing before you do. But if I'm in a white teacher classroom, like go straight to detention and stuff like that. My Black teachers, they respect people's opinions. They respect people as people. As like it don't really matter what color you are. They respect you no matter what. As long as you respect them, they're gonna respect you. They stay on top. They stay on top of me. They make sure I don't just go around disrespecting anybody. I don't do that, but like if I was to, I know that my Black teacher, they would just like cut that out, because if I'm doing that and they don't say nothing, I'm gonna think it's cool when I get older. I feel like my Black teachers, they give me more motivation than the white teachers do, because like I look up to them, because me seeing what they're doing, it makes me want to do it too. There's one teacher, he's a male. I look up to him like really a lot because I'm a male, and like seeing what he's doing. As me being a Black child like that I am, it makes me feel like I want to do more to help my friends and stuff like that. It make me just want to push farther than what I am now, just like grow as a person.
For our next takeaway, we'll talk a little bit about some of the challenges. Teaching is a demanding profession, and all teachers face these challenges. However, from our conversations with Allegheny County Black teachers, we learned that they experience both systemic and interpersonal racism at their schools, which exact a psyche toll and can make them want to leave the classroom. So in this next clip, we will hear from 2 teachers about the racism they and their students have experienced and how it has impacted them. We want to just urge everyone to take care of themselves, to do some deep breaths as they hear the next clip. And it is a little bit longer. And we also will be sharing this Slido for people to have an engagement and collaborative conversation as the clip plays.
Our last teacher, Nicole, offers her reflections on what it's like to be a Black teacher in Allegheny County.
My name is Nicole, and I teach 2nd grade ELA. I've been teaching for, I think, about 25 years. The type of school I work at is an urban public school. As far as teachers, there are 3 female African-American teachers and 1 male African-American teachers in my school. The rest are white. I would say 46 teachers, then 42 are white.
Nicole explains how bias against Black students can show up in other damaging ways.
So when I first started teaching, it was kind of easy because I started with early childhood. So that part was a little bit easy. But then when I transitioned to school age, I saw the microaggressions a lot more. I recall one teacher stating to me, Miss Nicole, you don't know how to teach this. You've only taught preschool. You don't know. Why don't you think I don't know? What makes you think that I don't know? And I don't know how to work with the students. And always just running in my room, being a busybody. She had many things that were just so inappropriate that was against our Black and brown students. I do remember one story I'll never forget. We had got the results of our state test scores, and I think our test scores weren't great. And so she comes to me and she says, Miss Nicole, do you think our test scores are bad because of all the Black children we have here? And I said, so are you stating that you don't know how to teach our Black children? Oh, no, that's not what are you asking me then? What are you asking me? Because if they're not doing well, it's because something you're not doing. It's not that these children don't know how to take a test. It's something that you're not doing. Oh, no, that's not what I meant. That's what you said. And then she run out my room. Oh, never mind. Yeah, never mind. Don't go out my room. But the audacity to even ask me that, like I was going to entertain it. It was a very negative impact. She talked to the students in a demeaning way. She talked to their parents in a demeaning way. She never had good things to say about the students. She never had good things to say about the parents. She did not care if the students were learning the material. She never changed the way she delivered the information. It was just go. Not wondering if the children were understanding. Did they know what they were doing? And then she was so excited to say by the 1st of June, I completed my whole curriculum. But your kids don't know anything.
Black teachers love and care for their students. They want to be there for them, and they have unique connections with them and all their students. So that love and that care continues to motivate them to endure despite all the challenges they're facing. And Black teachers are going to continue to show up for their kids and be resilient to serve them.
And while Nicole is anchored by her students like Lisa, she also talks about damaging effects of having to witness other teachers be racist towards students in her own community. It takes a heavy toll, a theme the RFA research explores. And it's true, as a teacher myself, the kids are what kept me there. But so often, racism towards Black students signals ways that those same teachers will be racist against the Black staff at their school site.
You know, Black teachers are dealing with the stress of working in a system that is full of racism, and they see that same racism affecting their students.
And we see this in the research. Being a witness to racial harm against students hurts Black teachers, and the isolation of being a Black teacher only exacerbates the situation.
So we spoke with 3 Black educators who are all working in Allegheny County, and all of their stories mirror what came up in our research. Up first is Camille.
My name is Camille. I have taught for about the last 20 years. I've taught in charter school, I've taught in traditional public schools as well. the traditional public schools have been both urban and suburban schools. But my charter school experience was predominantly urban in the city or like city adjacent suburbs. I started off in pre-K doing some work with Jumpstart Pittsburgh, and I was a core member and a team leader there. And then I got into classrooms and I taught first grade, fourth grade, a semester of seventh grade science, and had to walk away from that. And those were mostly in urban environments. I'm currently in a suburban school district where I'm the principal of an elementary school. And there's a way in which Blackness for children and even Blackness for adults in white spaces shows up as like a threat. And so it's approached in that way, you know, like, oh, you're being too loud. Well, I'm not being loud. I'm excited about whatever we're talking about, but you don't like how I'm addressing it. So now that's a problem, you know? And so there's a policing of sometimes things that might be cultural, but I think that policing then leads people to mask certain parts of themselves. Like, oh, in this place, I can't be my whole self. So I have to show up in this way. And that's exhausting to do that day after day after day. I think not having people who look like us, like Black people here, then makes it even more less likely that people of color will apply, because they're like, oh, I'm not stepping into that alone. You know, there's no community there for me. So even when I am going through these things where parents are talking about me or saying that I'm this or that, or I'm unintelligent or uneducated or whatever, there's no one going to be there to talk to. I don't know if there's an ally there. And so I think that there is this recognition that if you're coming into this community and you don't have any support, then you're going to be isolated and you don't want to go through that alone. Even for me, working in predominantly white spaces and now being in a predominantly white school, when I see someone else who is Black, I'm like, hey. Because there's a comfort and an understanding of the experiences and not a need to constantly perform or even a feeling of a performance. You know, even if you decide that you're not putting that mask on today, there's going to be a notable difference for those people. And I think, you know, even sometimes when trauma happens and it doesn't even register for the white folks that I work with, having someone here who understands what happened and why it's important is helpful. So there is a sense of safety, a sense of understanding, and a joint community that you get just by seeing someone who looks like you.
Another challenge Camille addresses is feeling isolated. At one school she worked at, Camille was not just the only Black teacher in the school, she was the only Black teacher in an entire district. When you're the only one in a white space, when you're existing in an institution that perceives your cultural behaviors as unprofessional or aggressive, professional survival often requires masking yourself.
You know, Kevin, just like Black students are policed and punished, Black teachers are policed in school buildings. Sounds to me like Camille is saying that if Black teachers being themselves is a threat, if advocating for a community is a disruption, then masking is a way to stay safe and keep others comfortable.
Yeah, and the need for affirming and supportive networks for Black teachers is something that came up a lot in our research. Camille's story shows the psychological costs that occur when teachers don't have that.
Thank you all again for your attention and all of your responses in the chat. So yeah, I just wanted to highlight a few things that stood out. One person was kind of talking about in more that action-oriented thing to what we can do to fight isolation that Black teachers are facing is hiring multiple Black teachers at the same time rather than just having one or two at a school district. I think that's really important to build that kind of affinity space within systems that might not have that many Black teachers. So thank you for sharing that. And I'll transition to my colleague Liana, who will explain a little bit more about the microsite where we're going to be housing the audio documentary.
Hello. Thanks, Kevin. And thank you all for your the comments and reflections that you left. I hope you can see one another's. So transitioning to this next piece, at Research for Action, we believe in the importance of understanding the experience of Black teachers in a local community or region like Allegheny County, and also seeing the value in connecting learnings across communities, cities, and even states to continue to invest in improving the systems that Black teachers work in and strengthen efforts to diversify our teacher workforce. Another project at Research for Action that we have is a participatory action research project with Black teachers called Voices for Change. And there's a few of our teacher researchers and fellows in this room right now. Maybe like raise your hand or something, I don't know. Or put a heart up so people know who you are. And it has expanded from Philadelphia and Detroit to include Black teachers from all around the country. And one of the actions resulting from our pilot cohort was to affirm Black teachers' experiences and shift the deficit-oriented narrative on teachers, and especially Black teachers, to one that honors their contributions and the legacy of Black teachers. And since then, we have been working on building a microsite as an interactive archive that documents the experiences and perspectives of Black teachers. And we hope that this microsite serves as a welcoming and affirming space for all educators, and especially Black educators. And we also hope and also offers the opportunity for folks who care about education and educators to learn from Black teachers. And so today we're having our official launch of our microsite, which I will share with you in a second while I prepare to share my screen. Okay. Are you all seeing the microsite? Okay. And then Abigail is going to introduce herself and talk it over a bit.
Hi, everyone. My name's Abigail Henry. I'm a research fellow supporting RFA. I was part of the pilot study and the first cohort. I'm also supporting them this summer with their summer Southern research study. I am so excited about the launch of this microsite. I absolutely think it looks beautiful. There's been a lot of hard work put into it from a lot of Black teachers. I really see this microsite as being like our own artifact of storytelling about research and Black teachers' experiences. So often, Black teachers' voices are left out of the archives and out of history textbooks, and this site really becomes an artifact of our own experiences. This microsite contains a lot of information. It contains if you go to the Listen tab, which Liana is clicking on now, it contains the podcast that you just listened to, clips of. It also contains a limited podcast series that was conducted by Andrea Barnes, who was a teacher in Philly, and Vicki Green, who was a Black teacher in Detroit. That's a 3-episode series. In addition, it contains blog posts. This is something that we're hoping more Black teachers that have participated in studies and moving forward will contribute to. This was really interesting for me to look back on. Right now, there are 3 blog posts that I wrote. One about Black educators seeing their work as sacred. Another about why Black students do not want to become Black teachers, and also some of the Black teacher challenges that we all face. If you click on the action part, the action tab in action shows photographs of our experiences together at our retreats. It also contains images of our visualizing a Black teacher's experience through storytelling. And I am just really, really most excited. It's not up there now, but somebody will be dropping it in the chat soon. Is out of our first cohort, we have come up as an action step with a Black teacher affinity space toolkit. This is something we spent a lot of time, kind of like the last 2 months of our time together virtually. We really thought that because of our experience together as teachers over a course of 9 months, we really wanted to provide tips for other organizations and schools potentially to create Black teacher affinity space sites. This is something that would also be potentially sent to schools and presented at conferences. The other Black teacher researchers that are here right now in this virtual space also helps contribute to this. So please check out the Black Teacher Affinity Space Toolkit, the microsite, and share it with friends, with other organizations and coworkers who you think will be interested in this. I will also just lastly pass it back to Liana because she will talk about the research section.
Yeah, our final page just provides more information about our research, both the Small But Mighty study that we're talking about and centering today, and then also our PAR research with Black teachers. And so, yeah, let me stop sharing. This microsite is a work in progress, and we'll be adding more and more content to it, and just really excited to finally see it ready and that it's available to share with you after working on it for about over a year.
Okay, great, thank you. Also very excited to see it all come together. It's been a long time coming and so many people have contributed to that microsite. So when you have some time, please do check it out. So now we'd like to transition to a community conversation. We have some members of the community in Allegheny County who are involved with and leading efforts to diversify the teacher pipeline. So as they're speaking, please feel free to add any questions or thoughts that come up for you in the chat. The RFA team will be keeping their eyes on the chat, and hopefully we'll have some time at the end to pose some of your questions to the panel, to the community members. But I have some questions I'd like to start us off with. So before we do that, I'm going to ask each member of the panel to introduce themselves, and then we'll get into my questions. So if you could please share your name, title, and your current organization and the teacher diversity efforts or work that you're involved with now, that would be really great. So if we can start with Dr. Aaron Johnson.
Good afternoon, everyone. Dr. Aaron Johnson, Teach Plus PA Program Director. I help lead with my colleagues the Equity Leadership Institute, which is working with school districts here in Allegheny County to look at ways to diversify their educator workforce. Been working with now 12 districts over the last 3 years and helping them make that happen by coming up with implementation plans and action plans to make those steps to diversify their educator workforce. So thank you.
Thanks for being with us. And we also have Chase Patterson.
Hey, everybody. I've got a cold, so please excuse me. I don't want you all watching me blow my nose for the whole program. It's good to be with you all. I am Chase Patterson. I've thoroughly enjoyed listening to this podcast. And Dr. Johnson, I had an opportunity to talk about a little bit over the weekend. So I want to commend RFA for the work that you've done thus far. I have the honor and pleasure of serving as the CEO of the Urban Academy of Greater Pittsburgh. We've been around 27 years, the oldest and first charter to operate in the city of Pittsburgh. And we were founded by the Urban League, which in itself is a testament to the work that we are charged with doing, which is included in our charter and our mission. And I've also got the honor of leading the State of Black Learning Conference, which is a program of the Urban Academy and convenes educators from all across the country to center Black students and the issues that they address in their learning. So I'm really excited to be here with you all, to see a lot of familiar faces and names, and looking forward to the conversation. Thanks, Dr. Parks.
Awesome, thank you. Dr. Pinchback Johnson, could you introduce yourself, please?
Sure. My name is Dr. Elise Pinchback Johnson. I'm a co-founder of Black Women for a Better Education. Our goal is to ensure that Black children in our region get the high quality education that they need and deserve. We've been doing that work through focusing on electing highly qualified folks to our school board. The majority of them have been Black folks that we are electing to the school board of Pittsburgh Public Schools. As was mentioned earlier, the district is undergoing some reconfiguration efforts. And so there's a lot that needs to happen right now to ensure that all students, but especially Black students, can finally get the support and education that they need. Our work is on the shoulders of our elders and ancestors. As some of you may know, the district was sued by the Advocates for African American Students in 1992. And 33 years later, they are still in a memorandum of understanding trying to figure out how to educate Black children at high levels. And so, we are a continuation of that work, and also the education and political activism of Dr. Barbara Sizemore, who was one of the first folks to leverage an elected school board to get a highly qualified superintendent into Pittsburgh Public Schools. And so we stand on the shoulders of that important work as well.
Yes, very important work. Thank you. Janae Coleman.
Hi, everyone. I'm Janae Coleman. I serve as the Strategic Workforce Initiatives Manager for the Pittsburgh Promise. For some of you who don't know, the Pittsburgh Promise is a scholarship organization here in Pittsburgh that helps students who graduate from the Pittsburgh Public School System pay for college. In addition to that, we have a separate scholarship called the Advancing Educators of Color Scholarship that gives students a full ride to become teachers, and specifically teachers within the Pittsburgh Public School System. So we have an agreement with PPS where they will hire these scholars who receive this scholarship as teachers once they receive their credentials. So right now we have a total of 28 scholars who have been selected. We have a goal of 35. And so this conversation is especially interesting to me because they will be working in the system, and what can we do to support them?
Yes, thank you. And then Deshauna, I don't want to butcher your last name, so I'll let you.
It's okay. I'm Deshauna Wisniewski. I teach second grade here in Hampton, but I am a part of, co-founder of Teaching is My Favorite Color. It is an organization here in Pittsburgh that supports teachers of color in the region, where we come together and learn together, support each other, have conversations, just have a space where we can be ourselves, because a lot of us, like said in the podcast, are the only ones. And it can be isolating, and it can be a lot. So check out Teaching is My Favorite Color, and a lot of that work that we're doing goes perfectly with this discussion.
So yes, thank you and welcome to our entire panel. I'm going to pose my questions, and I invite you to kind of just, respond as you're called to. Please feel free to build on each other's responses, be in dialogue with each other. But as you all can see, we have some really rich experience here and different perspectives and folks doing work at different points along the teacher pipeline. So really interested to get your thoughts. My first question, just wondering, as you were listening to those clips from the audio documentary, what reflections resonated most for you, and how are those reflections connected to the work that you've been doing? Feel free. Aaron, I see you're unmuted, so if you want to start.
Yeah, I'll start it off. So with Teach Plus, our mission is to empower excellent, experienced, and diverse teachers to take leadership over key policy and practice issues that advance equity, opportunity, and student success. So for me, what resonated for me in the podcast was using that teacher voice as a catalyst for change, right? Being able to have teachers at the table that can, bring their personal narrative, not just their personal, but just their narratives and their stories to reinforce that emphasis on teacher voice in terms of looking at policy or practicing things out and changing in their district. So that's what kind of resonated to me from the and how it connects to Teach Plus as well.
I can jump in. What resonated with me, I believe it was Camille. She was the principal, and she talked about how she was able to conquer the classroom and create like a culture there. But then once she got into a leadership position, it was hard to foster that same culture to support the students with adults in the middle. And so it took some learned experience for her to do that. But what training or what mentorship can we help principals be able to achieve that, specifically principals of color? And that's especially important to me because we actually have some scholars who aspire to be leaders within the school system. So how can they learn from others, learned experiences to do something like that?
What stood out to me is when one of the teachers shared about masking, and I feel like that's something that I constantly do all the time, and I don't even realize I'm masking. But also just being in a space where I feel like I'm always on guard and I always have to watch what I say and how I say it and how my facial expressions come across and how my delivery is being perceived. And that's what's so great about teaching is my favorite color, because when we come together, we're all ourselves. Everyone is just authentically them, and we can vent and talk about those experiences and give each other advice and support each other, because there's so many times we're experiencing things in our schools alone and we don't have someone to say like, hey, let's talk to this union person. I know this person. This is some suggestions you can do. When you have your next meeting, let me know. I can be an advocate for you. So just being amongst a group of other teachers and we all have each other's back is so powerful. But then also just having that time to be amongst other educators to be ourselves.
Yeah, I actually I'm at a conference in Detroit this week, and Liana and I got the opportunity to see a presentation earlier about like breathable spaces. Some other researchers were talking about breathable spaces for people of color and the fact that safe space, you know, is different for everyone and is not always possible. So they didn't want to call it safe space. But what does it look like to have a breathable space? So just your response caused me to think back to that presentation earlier and think more about what we can do to create breathable spaces for Black teachers. That's also something that the teacher researchers with our participatory action research project have been working on, and you know, as Abigail was just talking about with the affinity spaces. So yeah, I just wanted to say that I that definitely resonates also with the work that we've been doing.
I would just add how sadly unsurprising and unshocking that all of this is and continues to be, you know, at least for me personally. And it really just takes us back to just this idea of the blatant disregard of Black people, whether it be students, educators, community members, as experts of our lives, of our lived experiences, experts in these spaces of education. And the fight that continues. I mean, this is the same conversation and the same desire that Dr. Sizemore and the advocates and lots of other folks who've been in this work for decades had to be heard and understood and listened to as folks who know the answers and have the key to educating Black children at high levels, to changing the trajectory of Black students' lives. And so, you know, it is great to have a platform to hear from these educators about their experiences, yet sad that we are having these same conversations over and over.
Yep. Dr. Pinchback Johnson, that's a very good point. You know, we're still having these conversations. I've been in education for over 30 years, and it's kind of like, you know, when are we going to see some real progress and change from others? But I want to let my brother K. Chase Patterson respond to the question too.
Well, one of the things Dr. Johnson advised me not to do over the weekend was to say any swear words. So I will refrain from saying exactly what I was preparing to say. Nonetheless, Dr. Pinchback Johnson is correct. You know, we're just caught in the middle of a tornado, man. And it's going to take us kind of revolutionizing how we elect to lead our respective schools and classrooms, frankly. What I was really encouraged by was the educator who said that it doesn't matter where the kids sit. It doesn't matter if they sit. Sometimes we take the wrong things too seriously and we make the small things too big of a deal that we can't focus on the big things that are the real deal. So we spend more time disciplining our classrooms and less time teaching them the discipline that's necessary to read and develop quality character. And so to have an educator say, I don't really care where you sit, as long as you can sit and do the work or stand and do the work and ask the questions, that's powerful. That's liberating. It's freedom in a classroom to learn how you need to learn in a way that will allow you as an individual to grow and to impact the community in which you're growing. And so what I'm encouraged to see, which we probably see more than we know, are teachers closing their doors, taking the reins of their classrooms and handling the business and getting it done. And that's what we, as particularly those of us that are leading schools, we need to allow that to happen. We need to allow teachers to do what they do well, give them the support to do it well, mind our business and let them mind theirs.
Yeah, you saying, just closing the door and doing what you need to do reminds me of Jarvis Gibbons' work on fugitive pedagogy. So I think, yeah, just us thinking about what does it look like for us to say, I heard what the district said, I heard what the school leader or whoever said, but I know how to teach my students, and so I'm going to make it happen by whatever means necessary. Yeah. Janae, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I was going to add anecdotally, it made me chuckle. I think about my son during COVID. He was in third grade at the time, and he did very well online. He would, have his computer up, do a flip, and do all this stuff. And then they'll call on him and say, Eli, what's the answer to this? And he'll unmute, get the answer right, and continue to do his flips. So for him, he needed that to kind of be able to engage in the classroom. But then coming back to the classroom, having to sit still, just to the point of allowing them to do what's necessary for them to be able to learn the best way possible.
Absolutely, yeah. Thank you. Just a reminder to the audience, if questions are coming up for you or even thoughts, if things are resonating, please feel free to drop them in the chat. I'm going to move forward to another question, and I think some of you were kind of getting the wheels turning in this area already. I think some of you kind of posed some questions that are good segues, but my question is about action. So what suggestions do you have for specific actions that different stakeholders, so community members, district leaders, school leaders, et cetera, what are your suggestions for specific actions they can take to help strengthen the Black teacher pipeline and improve Black teacher retention, especially within this current context of the attacks on and the attempts to dismantle racial equity efforts?
Make a motion. I think we have too many school boards, Pittsburgh Public School Board in particular, no shade, just truth, that spends more time listening to legal advice than they do to parents, to students, to teachers, to principals, to communities. And because they listen to legal advice and they still get sued, they are not adequately responding to the needs of the communities that they serve. And so it's time for board members to just start to make motions. And then let the lawyers actually work for the money that they get paid. But the reality is that if we're not making tough decisions by way of sophisticated motions at school board meetings, legislative and procedural actions, and holding our superintendents, building leaders, and school leaders responsible for saving our communities and our children, then we're just going to continue in the eye of this storm and this tornado. And so we need strong leaders who are making motions at the school board tables and corralling the votes to get those motions passed to make the impact in the areas that you described, Dr. Parks, and others for that matter.
What I would like to see, more leadership to do is to start recognizing your educators of color. That's people that can help your system, not just people who are just trying to survive in your system, but getting them to actually have that voice at the table, to see them as individuals who can help to change their school climate, and not just sit back and have them sit in their room, but bring them to the table so that they can help to build the system with you. Because as we saw with Eli, we've seen a lot of the teachers that have been part of this. They like being at the table and saying, "Hey, I have a say in this," because at any other time I'm just sitting in my classroom. You don't ask for my opinion or my input, but with this, we have an opportunity to have a voice, and so that's very important to me. And then I think also, we got to be real. We got to start and not just move from celebration, but also to compensation. I think there needs to be a little bit more, a little more pay given to us as well, to teachers of color, so that they will stay within their systems and recognizing them and rewarding them. So I think those are two things that I'm thinking of right now. So I'm sure there are 18 different more I could bring up, but I want to give the floor to my colleagues.
I mean,
I
think.
Oh,
Go ahead.
okay, thank you. I want to piggyback off what Dr. Erin Johnson said about teacher voices. And I've been learning these past few years, I've been brought to the table to have conversations, and my voice has been heard, but my voice is just heard. And I feel like the next step of action is so important for there to be progress, because you can listen to my feelings and you can hear my concerns all day, but if you don't have the courage and the boldness to make the changes that need to be made, nothing is going to happen. So I completely agree with hearing teacher voices, but also being willing to be bold and take actions on the voices that you're listening to.
Yeah, I heard someone speak recently, and I wish I remember who it was, but they were talking about going for broke in education. And if you really care about Black students getting a quality education and about Black teachers' experiences, and you want to see change, that means you'll be ready to go for broke, right? Like you'll put it all on the line. So
Yeah, which is, I guess, a great segue into, I used to work at PPS and now I don't. And, I went for broke every day. But I feel like, one thing, and I feel like this continues to be the issue in any conversation that we have around, trying to promote equity or racial justice, social justice, is the focus on the people who are being oppressed. So like, what are we going to do? And there's a balance, like absolutely Black teachers of color need affinity spaces. They need to be able to come together. They need to be valued and looked to for their expertise. And like right now, the folks who are on, this is the choir, y'all, like nobody on here, well, I can't say no, I won't, make that as a generalization, but I highly doubt that anybody on here right now, does not feel like this type of work is important. And so what responsibility do we have to call out, call in, whatever you want to say these days, the folks that need to understand what needs to happen? So just like you need a, affinity group for Black teachers to be able to come together and share this, you need an affinity group for white leaders and white educators that need to get their stuff, I won't cuss as Chase said, their stuff together as well. And so, I think that continues to be a piece. And we see it, in all different things, like, oh, we got to bring together these Black folks and put them in this fellowship or this special program and try to figure this out. Yes. And again, like how do we prevent integrating our folks in the burning buildings? Because I feel like that's what we've been doing for decades and decades as well.
That's a good point, because I've worked in a few districts in Allegheny County, and I'll say of the ones I worked in, I've had two white superintendents who actually questioned the whiteness in their school culture, right? About, and but I think that's you're right. They need to have the opportunity to, how do I say, we got to confront the normalcy of whiteness sometimes, like, and so those school leaders, they did that, and I think that's why I stayed, with them. But when they left, you had somebody else come in. I didn't do that, and I didn't uphold that, so it wasn't that welcoming space again. So, yeah, that's a good point, Dr. Pinchback Johnson.
I'll just add, I don't have much experience in the school system, but from what I've seen and heard, there are affinity groups. But how can we, I'm trying to think the word for it, like institutionalize them, not institutionalize, but like make them, strengthen them. Let's say that, strengthen them so that teachers who are hired on, they know that this is a resource, and value them and incorporate their voices so that you have one, central space that they can go to find mentorship, to find support, to find, all the resources that they need, and embed that into the culture of the school district or the whatever school that they're at, but kind of have that single space for them. It just seems like there are pockets of it everywhere, but how can we centralize that? And not only that, but value it.
Yeah, that's bringing up another question for me, which I think is something we kind of touched on in our in-person convening too, but I'm wondering what you all think. Um, so it sounds like you're saying, like there's strength in numbers, and so there's also strength in like having all of that centralized and having a full community with all different types of folks in it and different perspectives, right? That can bring different resources. So knowing that like the work is happening in Allegheny County, but in different organizations, and maybe with different individuals at different levels, I'm curious what you all think it would look like, or would it be helpful, and how do we bring all those different organizations and things together to have like some sort of coalition or something that can be stronger together. Is that something you all have had an opportunity to think about?
But well, I do know we have the PEDC, and also teaches my favorite
Yeah,
color. So
absolutely.
Pennsylvania Educator Diversity Consortium. And I think that we do have a Southwestern PA coordinator too. And so I think getting involved in that is a start, in terms of looking at how we can come together and for that collective impact. I know we talk about that a lot in terms of how do we come together for that.
And I know with teaching is my favorite color, like that's our goal. Like our goal is to reach as many teachers of color in this region and beyond this region. And I think just getting the word out and getting people a part of what we're doing and involved to help us grow and get the word out there. And, numbers is a big part of it, like having people come to our convenings and experience what we're experiencing and having those conversations.
So I'm wondering, we know there's a rich history of Black educators, kind of like we've talked about already, like closing the door, doing fugitive pedagogy, bringing their unique contributions to the classroom, advocating for Black students. And we know that there's teachers, today that are doing that work. So I'm wondering what can we learn from the work of Black teachers, both in the past and in the present, that can inform what it is we're trying to do in this current moment, in terms of improving Black teachers' experiences and retaining Black teachers.
I would just say Black teachers love what they do. They do it for the students. They need a space for joy, but not only that, they need support. And so when I think about my scholars who will be working within the school system, my desire is to equip, like through conversations like this, through EDC, to create a support network that can empower them not only to be change makers within their classrooms, but also in the school system. So we're having these conversations, and maybe these students could be the pilot to, go through some of the tips and the tricks and the resources we're developing, so that they can be retained as teachers.
Yeah. I think too, that I think it was Camille in the audio that talked about building relationships, right? So I think that, that's, what we need to learn about. How do we center this relationship-based teaching, right? How do we get people to understand that, and how, again, using our teachers of color as those to assist in these systems, because our pedagogy is really given. We do talk about high expectations. We do talk about respect. But we also show we care, right? And don't get me wrong, there are some teachers of color that aren't that good either. And I've had those as a principal myself, but there are those that are really good at what they do and good at their craft. So how can they be of a resource to our their community, right? But also looking at I just had an idea like not too long ago about PPS. Now they're closing all these schools, right? And so why couldn't they turn some of those schools, or one or two of those schools, into housing for teachers, particularly new teachers, right? Where you can say make them apartments. Now you're helping to build that community up with teachers, then possibly teachers of color, where they can actually interact with the students, interact with the families. So it's just a thought I had, but it's something that we need to take a look at. Historically, Black teachers have always been in their community. Like I'm pretty more pretty much, I think a lot of our teachers of color, I lived in my community as a teacher, and I think that that's historically what we do. So how do we now utilize as an asset?
And I think, for Black women for a better education, like we've always kind of been on this like if then track. So, if we elect highly qualified, student focused school board members to our school board, who then are responsible for managing our budget, selecting a highly qualified superintendent that is the academic leader and visionary leader that will then implement, then we may see success. So like that's kind of like the one if then track, but like there's always been a plan B. Like, if we can't use the master's tools to dismantle the house, then like where are we going to all meet in the middle and figure out what we're going to do with our kids? Because we talk about our Blexit, and what we mean by that is the Black exodus of children from harmful systems. And so like there's also a piece of this where it's like, if we can't figure out how to work within the system, what becomes our responsibility as Black educators, Black community members, people who are committed to our kids, to thinking about what alternatives look like. And for us, like it could be a multitude of things, like, and we've been called, sometimes everything but Black women for a better education, like, oh, you're the charter pack or you're corporate reform, where no, like people have one shot to figure this out for their kids, and we got to help folks to make the best decision for them, and we need to ensure that these things are working. And so there's also for us like a thought around like what does an ecosystem look like that is highly supportive of Black children, and what do we need to do to support Black educators in becoming a part of that ecosystem if they're not able to do it isolated or separated in some of these school districts.
Good point about the school board members, though, because that's what we need, more Black school board members to help make these informed decisions.
I would like to say, and y'all have heard this, all skin folk ain't kinfolk, right? So we got to be careful of having just Black people do stuff. We got to make sure it's the right people doing the right things for the right reasons and prioritizing the interests of Black students. That can be okay. You don't got to be Black to be an ally, to be an advocate, and to be a friend. And so, I have seen my fair share of fill in the blank with folks that share my skin color. So, and I'm not suggesting that Dr. Johnson or Dr. Pinchback Johnson were disagreeing with me. I just think it's important to note that, period.
Any other thoughts, or panel, is there just anything that came to mind for you that I didn't ask about that you really wanted to share?
I saw somebody put something in the chat. I don't know if it was a question, where to go. It said, something about needing a critical mass of, do you need a critical mass of Black teachers? Like if that person would want to maybe say more about, what do you mean, just like in general, or like maybe a little bit, maybe expand on that question, and we can maybe talk about that a little bit.
Hi, I'm the person who put that question. So my question is like, is it a matter of numbers, like how much, like, because you were saying that Black teachers were exiting the system, that while Hispanic and Asian teachers, there's a growth there, Black teachers are actually exiting the system. So how do you need a number for people to get together, to build these coalitions with maybe other teachers of color?
I'll just share a perspective that, I especially think like, post-election, that like, this beautiful umbrella that we like to call people of color has some work to do to examine, the role and presence of whiteness and, the perpetuation of anti-Blackness. And so I think, to Chase's point, to other folks' point, like, if you're about this anti-racism, anti-Black life, like anti-Blackness life, like, or, non-anti-Blackness life, then you want to be a part of this conversation and this work, by all means. Like, if you just want to like fly the banner of I'm a person of color, but I still want to perpetuate whiteness and anti-Blackness, then And I think we saw that because when we start breaking down POC into like racial and ethnic groups and thinking about, you know, how folks are moving during elections, or, you know, what folks are supporting, or, you know, how folks are stepping in or stepping back, you know, we can't just all just come together sometimes. Like sometimes we do. And that's Black folks as well. Like, you know, we are all impacted by the role and presence of whiteness. We are all impacted by anti-Blackness. We perpetuate it in multiple ways every single day. And so, you know, I think that one of the biggest takeaways is if you're not willing to really examine that within yourself and think about how you're combating that on a regular basis, then this work's not for you. And so it's not just numbers. You know, what's the saying? It's quality over quantity. Like, sure, like, do we need a critical mass? Like, would it be great for folks to be unified in this work? Absolutely. And you got to be about this light. Because if you're not, like, go ahead and step back, because you're going to do more harm than help.
Yeah, thank you. Members of the panel, did any you have thoughts on that you wanted to share as well?
Yep. If I may, once again, I just want to say thanks to everybody. It's great to see so many people on the call, and to the team at RFA, thank you for your work. And I just want to stress the importance of taking serious the serious stuff and not taking too serious the stuff that's not as serious as some people might make it. How we lean forward in love, care, and compassion at the end of the day, particularly those of us that are in the primary grades, that's really all that matters. Is does a kid know that you love them when they enter the room and when they leave the room? Do they get the same grace that you would expect if you show up to work late when they show up to class late? We have to empower and encourage our educators to step beyond the things that they learn in their classrooms in college, because oftentimes most of us have discovered that don't mean shit. Excuse me, I did it. Sorry, Dr. Johnson. I apologize. Those of y'all that know me know that, you know, you got to give me one free pass. Sorry, Dr. Parks. But at the end of the day, it's really about love, care, and compassion when you're talking about Black children. They know how to navigate struggle. They know how to resist. They know how to advocate. We just got to dig deep and pull the greatness out of them, because it is innate in who they are. It's not a struggle to get to it. We're the struggle. We're the roadblock. We're the obstacle. We got to get around ourselves and around those things that we are told we need to do, and just get to closing the door and letting the kids learn. So thank you again. Those are my closing remarks. And I'm going to turn my camera off and go blow my nose.
Yeah, thank you. And we appreciate the authenticity. So no worries. Because we still have a few minutes and there's one question in the chat, there's some responses to it, I think, but just, yeah, thank you, Dr. Pinchback Johnson, for responding to it in the chat, but I'll pose it to the rest of the panel in case you have thoughts also. And this question is specifically about superintendents and board members. So what's the call to action that you believe is necessary for superintendents and board members that will create the momentum necessary to see the change that we want? And Elise, I don't know if you wanted to voice yours over or add to it also.
Sure. So I was, you know, talking a little bit about like the policy and practice piece. And so, you know, true examination of those things. So in what ways are policies and practices supporting, you know, equity, but supporting Black students, and which ways are they not? You know, do a real equity audit. And I say that with all the shade, because, you know, one of our school districts did one and it really wasn't adequate, or they didn't do enough with it. But be intentional about actually doing some type of audit and then making some changes there. And then I also just put, you know, the fact that, like, you know, school board elections are actually pretty easy to win and they don't cost that much money. Ask us how we know. We've gotten like 7 people elected. So, you know, if you know, put yourself out there in terms of, like, you know, bringing folks together, you know, even this idea of a slate, like, how do you run a slate? How are you strategic? Like in Pennsylvania, if you got a 9-person board, you need 5 votes. Every other year, every 2 years, either 5 folks are turning over or 4 folks are turning over. There's some exceptions. There are some 2-year roles and some other things. So you got to get a little bit more nuance for your specific district. But, you know, think about how you can leverage school board. You know, the budget of Pittsburgh Public Schools is larger than the budget of the entire city of Pittsburgh. 9 people are making some big decisions about our children. Are they the right 9 people that should be doing it? We didn't think so. So we said, let's go find the ones that we think are. That's the same type of energy that we have to take in. And you know who else did that? Conservative white moms. That's why there's all these book bans, because they said, oh, let's go out here, run these school board races. These are down ballot races. People barely pay attention if it's a presidential year or your mayor or whatever is up. We're going to get all these folks on the school board, and then they're going to do all this crazy stuff in our districts. We can also use that power for good. We can use that power to promote equity and ensure we have high quality leadership that are running our districts as well.
Yes, thank you. I think that's a powerful note to end on. So I'm going to close our panel here. Thank you so much again to all of you for your thoughts and your perspectives. The link for Teaching is My Favorite Color is in the chat, so please check that out. And then panel members, if there's any links that you would like to share, please drop those in the chat. We can drop the link for PEDC, which was also mentioned. So again, appreciate your time, and I'm going to pass it to Saxon and Mary to close us out.
Thanks, Saida. And Alita, you can go to the next slide already. So we have been taking a few notes on some key takeaways, and we'll be sure to include those in our follow-up email following this event. But we didn't want to cut the conversation short with our community guests. So we need to say thank you, in addition to our panelists and our research team, to our generous supporters of this work, which includes the Heinz Endowments, the McElhatton Foundation, and the Eden Hall Foundation. Their support helped us conduct the study, the Small But Mighty study, some of the quantitative analysis that was shared, and the audio documentary. And then Alita, you can go to the next slide. And we have the QR code here for the report. And if one of my colleagues could also put the link to the microsite again in the chat. I know we had shared it earlier, so you can access the audio documentary that you heard today, as well as all the other resources that Liana and Abigail kind of voiced over earlier. Thank you to Quinter for doing so. You can contact our entire team on the email there. And Alita, I don't know if my last slide made it in on the socials, but in our follow-up email, we will also be sure to share our socials so that you can follow RFA and stay in the loop for future events and future work. And just one more time, thank you to our guests, to all those in attendance. We appreciate you being here. We appreciate the support. Saxon, I don't know if you wanted to share anything else, but it has been an honor to spend this late afternoon, early evening with you all.
Nope. Thank you, everyone. Look forward to following us more and look forward to our next listening session. Thank you.
Thank
Have
you.
a great evening.
Night, everyone.
Thank you.